You know, I realized I never actually did a video talking about the universe survival arc. For the start of every other new arc of Dragon Ball Super, I've kind of done some sort of predictions video, sort of talking about the things that I particularly want in the arc, but I realized the universe survival arc is starting within a few days and I never actually did one. At this point, this is just one of those retrospective videos, the ones I'm going to come back to when the arc is actually over and just look and just laugh at how wrong I was about everything, again, for the third time, but I might as well do this. And everything that I've been thinking about in terms of the universe survival arc and what I want and what I don't want and what I'm curious about can really just be summed up in three questions. Three questions I have about the universe survival arc. Number one, will every character get an important fight? I remember when the Shamper arc started and we got looked at all the main visuals and all the stuff in the manga, and everyone was really excited. Well, first of all, obviously the Dragon Ball Super was doing new stuff, but also because of the fact that we got to see Majin Buu and Piccolo in the tournament roster, implying that we got to see them fight. And people were honestly pretty excited to see Buu and Piccolo fight. Of course, that didn't end up being the case, really. Majin Buu literally doesn't even get a fight at all, and Piccolo's one fight is basically rendered completely meaningless by Vegeta's pride. The way that the Shamper arc was handled is honestly the thing that's kind of making me concerned about how the Universe Survival arc is going to work in terms of its treatment of the supporting cast members. The fact is that arc only had 5 participants, and yet it still basically went through a whole bunch of hoops to basically try and justify as to why only 2 of those 5 characters actually really mattered in the long run, and that was Goku and Vegeta. If that was only a 5-member tournament, and they still had to come up with reasons to get a lot of those characters out of the way really quickly, how on earth are they going to do a 10-member tournament and make them all really important? Basically, one of my biggest concerns about the Universe Survival arc is it almost feels a little bit too ambitious. Having 12 teams, having 10 members per team, it almost feels like there's just too many characters to the point that they're going to do something. I am expecting them to do something to get a lot of these characters out of the way very quickly. But the problem is, once again, a lot of these characters are characters who people will really be interested to see them fight. You know, characters like Android 17 and 18 and Krillin, Tenshinhan, freaking Gohan. The fact is, they're on the poster, so you'd expect that they're at least doing something, or at least get one fight per person. But the thing that I'm really curious about is whether those fights that all these characters have are going to be actually important in the long run. In an ideal world, I'd really love for all of these characters to get a fight, but in an even more ideal world, I'd really appreciate it if these fights that these characters have are actually important for the main characters being able to win in some way. I'm not saying it has to be like a life or death scenario for every single fight, but even if some of these fights accomplish something just as simple as just buying time for the main characters to do something else that's really important. Basically, I want these characters to feel like they're important and are actually contributing to the main plot in more ways than just gratuitous fan service. I don't want the fact that these characters are fighting to just be like, oh hey look, remember that guy? Remember that guy? Well here's this guy, they're fighting someone. That's cool. Don't you think that's cool? Don't you think that's cool? I want there to be something more. I want it to be kind of plot relevant because that is going to justify as to why they are there in the first place. Other than just selling merchandise, you know. Because we've had that before. You know, stuff like the 1,000 Freezer Soldiers fight in Resurrection F. It's something that is cool, and it is cool to see them fight, but it is also something that if you really think about it, it kind of didn't need to happen. It doesn't really directly help save anyone. I guess it buys time for Goku and Vegeta to get back so Goku can defeat Golden Frieza, but if you think about it, Frieza seemed pretty willing to just sit there and wait for Goku to come back anyway because that was his goal in the first place. The characters fighting Frieza's soldiers doesn't really accomplish much other than just giving them something to fight, and that's why I kind of just call it a little bit gratuitous. So basically, if I want fights, I want them to be more like, say, the characters trying to fend off Nappa and Vegeta and the Saiyan arc, and less like the characters just randomly fighting Frieza soldiers for no apparent reason. Number 2. Are we supposed to care about the other universes? One of the first things that we found out about the Universe Survival arc is one of the big things about the tournament is that if your universe loses, your entire universe gets erased. Obviously, that is a very big deal. I mean, you know, there are literally probably millions, billions of people in those different universes. If they get erased, that's a lot of people who are going to die. And it's a very good setup to realistically heighten the stakes after the Universe 6 tournament, where only the Earth was at stake. At this point, their entire universes are at stake. But the one thing I'm very curious about is, do the main characters in Universe 7 actually care that these other universes are going to be getting destroyed? Are they actually kind of horrified about it? When they see these other characters lose and their other universes getting erased, are they thinking that this is actually a bad thing and they should try and stop it? Or maybe say, try and get the Super Dragon Balls and wish them all back by the time the tournament is over? I'm not sure if this is going to happen, but one thing I was thinking about that could potentially happen is having them introduce another universe, or maybe even Universe 6, with characters that, aren't necessarily evil characters who are, at least, they're not necessarily perfect, but they're likable in some way. Having the Universe 7 team meet with that other universe, kind of bond with them, get some kind of connection to them, and then also see that universe lose and have their entire universe erased, and have the fact that they all die. And that would give the main characters in Universe 7 motivation to win, to kind of, first of all, to sort of almost avenge their loss, and second of all, to try and figure out some way that if they win, if they're standing, they're going to promise to go around and try and get that universe back in whatever way they can. I was thinking that that was going to be Universe 6's job, because we already know a lot of characters there. It would be very shocking if the universe where Hit and Kaba and all those other people go and actually lose, and then they all basically get wiped from existence. That would be a very big shock, and that would be something I would be legitimately down behind. But just judging by the few bits of preview footage we've seen from it, that seems a little bit less likely, but it still could happen, and that would be really interesting. Universes getting erased because they lose a tournament match is a big deal, and I kind of hope that the characters treat it like it is a big deal. And number 3. Will this tournament keep the tournament format until the very end, or will it eventually unravel into something even bigger? As I said before, universes getting erased is a really big deal, and it really does make the stakes get very, very high. It makes the stakes so high that you almost feel like this idea of universes getting destroyed and universes fighting it out is almost just too big to fit in just a simple tournament setting. There are a lot of kind of shonen arcs in general where they start off as a basic tournament, but then eventually the tournament just ends halfway through because all this terrible bigger stuff starts coming in and just interrupts the entire tournament. I'm thinking about things like, say, the Chunin exams in Naruto, or even the tournament in the Buu arc in Dragon Ball itself. I'm not saying that the Universe Survival tournament actually has to unravel at some point, but the fact is we did have a tournament that was played straight from start to finish in the Champ arc. It started and it ended just like a tournament would. I think some people are still a little disappointed that we went from one tournament arc and then, we had the Future Trunks arc after that, but then the next arc was another tournament. We went from one tournament to another tournament with just one small Future Trunks arc in between. If they play the Universe Survival arc completely straight, it could get a little bit repetitive and a little bit boring. So it would be really interesting if this does unravel into some big grander mystery, or overthrowing the gods, or something like that. On the one hand, there's been no hints that that's happening, but on the other hand, there's no hints that that isn't happening. So that would be interesting, and it would make this arc feel much bigger and grander, and it also means they don't have to be constrained by who's going to be fighting who, and if you're going to have to go and show this universe and all that kind of stuff. And those are the only things that I'm really thinking about as the Universe Survival arc starts. Basically, the big thing I'm wondering is this just going to be like the Champa arc, but bigger? Or is it going to spin off into something much greater and much more important? Because I liked the Champa arc, I liked the Universe 6 tournament, it was fun for what it was, but it would be really interesting to see them try something way more ambitious than just random fights that are kind of fun, but in the end it's really just Goku and Vegeta doing random fights, and everyone else, I don't know why they're there, and it doesn't really mean anything in the long run because it's very lighthearted. I hope this arc will be good though. I really hope this arc will be good. And I hope that they haven't basically gone a bit too ambitious and kind of shot themselves in the foot, because they're building up so many things that they could do that they can't possibly do all of them at the same time. And I hope that the animation schedule can do a whole bunch of fight-intensive episodes in a row without things just kind of collapsing. Those are my concerns, those are my hopes, those are my predictions, and I really hope that I'm not incredibly wrong again. I hope this is fun. I hope this is fun. So this is Gabby, signing out, and goodbye guys.